5 days ago, you would have been hard-pressed to find many Americans who knew the name Qassem Soleimani. Today, we all know it, and that Iran is vowing crushing revenge for the U.S. strike that killed Soleimani and has raised what it calls its red flag of war, symbolic call to arms. Iranian leaders have also declared they will no longer limit the country's nuclear fuel production, and the parliament of Iraq, where Soleimani was killed, voted for U.S. troops to leave their country altogether, as some MPs chanted in support of the military commander. In response, Trump declared via Twitter, quote, "If Iran strikes any Americans or American assets, we have targeted 52 Iranian sites representing the 52 American hostages taken by Iran many years ago, some at a very high level and important to Iran and the Iranian culture and those targets, and Iran itself will be hit very fast and very hard." An announcement that immediately raised concerns of possible war crimes if the president were really to carry out such attacks, particularly among Democrats who had already taken issue with Trump launching the first strike unilaterally.
There was no consultation. Every other president who served under, the leaders are called ahead of time and at least know what they do. And again, the founding fathers wanted Congress. They gave Congress the war powers, the war-making authority, because they wanted a check on the executive. This executive seems to have no check. And again, he's been erratic and unsuccessful in almost every previous foreign policy endeavor. This one is the most dangerous of all. We need Congress to be a check on this president.
To that complaint, Trump responded again, and I cannot emphasize this enough, via Twitter, quote, "These media posts will serve as notification to the U.S. Congress that should Iran strike any U.S. person or target, the U.S. will quickly and fully strike back, and perhaps in a disproportionate manner. Such legal notice is not required, but it is given nevertheless." Another notification, the 3,500 additional troops in the 6 B-52 fighter jets the Pentagon says they're deploying to the region to be prepared for a potential attack. Joining me are Air Force Lieutenant General Jack Weinstein. He's the former Deputy Chief of Staff for Strategic Deterrence and Nuclear Integration for the branch. General, thanks for being here. He's now Professor of International Relations at BU's Pardee School of Global Studies. Shirin Jaafari is a reporter for PRI's The World, which is produced right here at GBH. Good to see you. Shirin, in Middle East and North Africa, consultant Nasser Weddady. Nasser, it's good to have you back. Can I start with you? There's no doubt Soleimani was responsible for many deaths of Americans and others. So was it the right decision for Trump to order his killing?
And the tens of thousands of people who died at the hands of Soleimani are undoubtedly in agreement with the decision. Of course, there's a disagreement on the timing, but there's no doubt that Qassem Soleimani deserved that rather rude encounter with a missile.
So you're okay with it even if the consequences are dire?
I didn't quite say that.
Okay.
I don't believe either that the consequences are going to be dire, because the whole game here is that for the first time in 40 years of Iranian-American confrontation, all of a sudden the tables were turned. Now it's the United States that is playing Mad Men, which is a role traditionally played by the Iranians, playing brinksmanship, which completely changes the strategic picture here. It's now the Iranians who are hard-pressed and are afraid of provoking something that is unpredictable despite all of the hot air that is coming out of Tehran.
Can we go back to the original question, General, if we can? President Obama and President Bush, as in the younger Bush, were faced with an opportunity during their terms to take out Soleimani. They chose not to because of the fallout. Did President Trump make the right decision here?
No, I don't believe he made the right decision at all.
Why?
I think taking out Soleimani was an emotional act that is now, he's able to do something. The President of the United States has now been able to do something that no one else has been able to do, and that's unite the Iranian people against the United States.
Some of them were standing up against their own government in protest in recent times as well. So can you explain something? There's a New York Times story over the weekend, you probably saw it, in which it said the top military officials presented a list of options for the President of the United States. The Times described, the military officials describing taking out of Soleimani is the most extreme option, and then said they were, quote, stunned when he chose it. Why did they give it to him if they didn't want him to take it?
When I read the article, it's the same point I had. If you know the way this president behaves, the president's foreign policy seems to be very clear. If he thought of it, it's a good idea. If he hasn't thought about it, and it was someone else's idea, it was bad. So the question is, the military should have never given him an option that has now pitted the United States against Iran in a more confrontational piece than they were before.
I want to talk about his plan or his policy or whatever it is, but in response to criticism, the administration has said there was an imminent and sinister attack plan. Is there any evidence, objective evidence, that that is true?
Not that us as reporters have been told. I mean, there have been one press briefing since the attack, and in that there were no credible information other than the administration saying that they have intelligence, but we don't know what this intelligence is.
Elizabeth Warren was asked by Jake Tapper on CNN about the timing of this attack. Here's what Senator Warren had to say.
I think people are reasonably asking about the timing and why it is that the administration seems to have all kinds of different answers. In the first 48 hours after this attack, what did we hear? Well, we heard it was for an imminent attack. Then we heard, no, it was to prevent any kind of future attack. Then we heard from the vice president himself, no, it was related to 9/11. The administration doesn't seem to have a coherent answer for taking a step like that. And they have taken a step that moves us closer to war.
You know, Elizabeth Warren never says these words, but it sounds like she was suggesting a wag the dog kind of thing. And I'm assuming most people remember it was 2011 or 2012 where Citizen Trump suggested that Barack Obama was going to attack Iran. It was the only way he could win re-election. Obviously, he won re-election, but he didn't do that. Is this a wag the dog kind of thing on the part of the president?
There was an important set of events that happened in the run-up to the killing of Qassem Soleimani. The pro-Iran militias in Iraq attacked a U.S. base and killed a U.S. contractor. And the same militias tried to storm the U.S. embassy in Baghdad. And that was ostensibly the reason that the airstrike was launched.
Yeah, but with all due respect, there have been prior times, as recently as a year ago, where just 10 minutes before an attack, the president called it off because Tucker Carlson from Fox News advised him that it ran counter to his whole notion.
All politics are local.
No, but the
man is trying to get reelected.
We can also take this back to when President Trump decided to walk away from Iran nuclear deal, which, you know, Iran and world powers came together and signed. It was a very long process. So President Trump walked away from that and then his administration decided to ramp up pressure on Iran's economy. And Iran has been forced and has been pressured to the brink of collapse. I mean,
was it possible then the Trump strategy of maximum pressure is the right strategy? You're nodding in agreement. We'll get to you in a second.
Well,
is it possible that is the right strategy, even if there are a broad swath of people who aren't crazy about it?
Well, if the ultimate point was to bring the Iranians to the negotiating table to come up with a better deal, I mean, that's far from happening right now.
Well,
right?
Attacking Soleimani, what that did was it solidified the Iranian people against the United States. There is no doubt that he is an evil person that has killed Americans. The question is, what is the best way to really to have peace in the Middle East? The United States military has been deployed in the Middle East for over 29 years. When you look at the National Defense Strategy, the National Defense Strategy has us focused on China, focused on Russia, and even Secretary Esper was wanted to move troops away from the Middle East. What this did now is to bog down the United States because Soleimani isn't the person that because as soon as you kill Soleimani, what is the Ayatollah going to do? He's going to select a new person to take over and follow his wishes.
Is there a plan, by the way? Do you think, I mean, I mentioned a minute ago, I asked you, Shirin, whether or not Trump's maximum pressure strategy was the right one. That may be giving him too much credit that there is a strategy. You were nodding in agreement that it might be a correct strategy.
I'm nodding because fundamentally this entire debate comes down to the following point.
What's that?
Is the Iranian regime a rational actor? Is it a self-interested actor? And in the last 40 years, what we have indications time and again is that they talk a lot of rhetoric and hot air, but they stop short at a full military confrontation with the United States. And so the question with the Iranian regime is that its behavior has created immense problems. Granted, the United States withdrew from the nuclear agreement, and nonetheless, the problems remain the same, because right now the Iranians are hurtling towards a bomb, which a thing which they would have achieved anyway at the end of the JCPO validity period.
That's a lot.
However,
Good.
Well,
let's start here and then
So
go there.
yes.
Under the JCPOA, international monitors were allowed into the country. They were allowed even before that, but they were extensively limiting Iran's abilities and nuclear capabilities. That was the whole point of the nuclear deal. It would limit Iran and it would stop Iran from making the bomb or racing to making the bomb.
And one of the ironies is Donald Trump was worried about them full speed ahead in 15 years. Now they're full speed
10.
ahead now, or 10, whatever it is,
10.
full speed ahead now, no?
JCPOA was working, and if they broke out of JCPOA, we would have given warning that they were breaking it out. What we did is this pressure campaign. The pressure campaign may have been working. There was a lot of problems that the Iranian people were feeling. The sanctions and all that were working. The question is, what is the best way for the United States to have reacted to the killing that Soleimani that was directing, and killing the person that was revered in the country, equating Soleimani to our country to be like the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, has created what I'm concerned about is a martyr for the Iranian people.
But we can't undo that, General. So here we are today. What is the best strategy for the United States to pursue going forward, starting with you, and then we'll go down the line?
Well, the best thing we can do is we need to make sure that we're not the bullies in the Middle East.
How do you do that?
Well, I think we need to stop doing foreign policy by Twitter. Foreign policy by Twitter is very dangerous. When the president makes a comment that he's going to attack cultural sites,
which would be a war crime, correct?
It is. It's against the Geneva Convention to do that. So I think the United States, we need to act like Teddy Roosevelt, which is speak softly and carry a big stick. There is no doubt the United States has a military capability that we can defend ourselves. What we need now is not to use bravado in the Middle East to inflame an area that's already inflamed.
Is there any evidence that historically that Donald Trump can speak softly? The stick thing is not an issue with him. The speak softly seems to be an issue.
Well, I mean, we have seen in other areas that President Trump has said he doesn't want to engage more American troops in the Middle East. Even in Afghanistan,
he's just
he has
sending
said that
thousands more as a result of this action to prevent another attack. Now he's sending 3,000 more to prevent a prospective attack.
Exactly, and he has sent even more troops after the Iranians hit the Saudi facilities. Don't forget about that. So
he did show restraint, though, with the Saudi attack. He did not attack back. So I think that was a positive sign by the president.
But we don't know if that's impulse or strategy. What is the proper strategy going forward starting today? You don't seem to be terribly worried about retaliation.
No, I'm not, because
Why?
I've been watching the Iranians for the last 30 years, and I know that they are irrational. They know that they're dealing with an unpredictable American president who sits at the biggest military stick in history.
So what do they do?
And they know they basically will have to survive this. They have to just sit down and wait till Donald Trump is out of office. That's the only choice they have, realistically. And
so the strategy is to wait 1 or 5 years on the part of Iran?
Iran doesn't play. That's the big mistake where I disagree with a lot of people. Iran doesn't do things on a 1 week or 2 week wingspan. The Iranians work in terms of decades. That's their vision.
Do you buy that they'll show restraint, Iran?
I think what this has done is that it has emboldened the conservative factions within Iran, because right now Iranians are from all backgrounds. They are rallying and uniting behind the government.
Yeah.
Exactly. Just today we saw the mass people pouring out to show respect for this man, and he has become a martyr. He has become a hero for the American people. I mean, what else could the Iranian people have said?
One last thing.
I do think they will strike back. Now,
you do?
I do think
what do you think they'll do?
Whether it's attacking a ship and to slow down the oil. We already saw oil prices go up today. I think they will do something, even with a
What if it's a general for a general? What would that mean? If they decided to take out an American general in response, that would be a pretty dramatic circumstance.
And I believe the president will react, and I'm not sure he used 52 targets, but I'm sure he would definitely attack some places in Iran.
You have the final quick word.
A quick word is that, again, like the most, at the same time, disturbing and interesting development here is that for the first time we have an American president who is out-Iraning Iran at their own game. And that is both interesting, but also could go out of control with someone like Donald Trump, who's not at all privy to the intricacies of international diplomacy and international relationships.
Nasser, it's good to see you.
Thank
Thanks
you
so much. Shirin, thank you as always. General, pleasure.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time. Really appreciate it.